All right, welcome back. It is time now for Tom and Joy's playlist, and I have got something special for you today. We talked about this last week.
Yes.
On this show during the Queen City Shout Music Festival. There is a documentary about the history of Springfield's music scene called The Center of Nowhere. And if you haven't seen it, you should. We'll talk about it after this preview. Check this out.
We're in beautiful downtown Springfield.
Everything just seems authentic here.
It's a big city that's a small town. You just walk around the town, you know, and just go into a local coffee shop, just, you know, strike up a conversation with people.
There it is, the skeleton. We were out making a little bit of noise, getting written up here and there.
Springfield became a recording center, one, because it had this great guy named Lou Whitney that people loved.
They said, well, now, JoJo, why don't you come down with make a record with us here in Springfield sometime?
Springfield was a wonderful, wonderful town that treated me like a little princess.
Yeah, it is kind of nowhere. And it's right there in the center of nowhere, as Lou Whitney used to say.
Fast food, a slow death.
Branson is proof that God has a sense of humor.
The Ozark Mountains are very, very mysterious.
A lot goes on back up in those woods. That kind of plays into the music.
If you listen to American music, you've felt the spirit of Springfield, Missouri. But have you been there?
All right, this film, The Center of Nowhere, was written and directed by Chicago journalist Dave Hoekstra, okay?
Yeah.
Co-produced by a former PBS producer named Jamie Caesar. Now, the idea came about in the late 1990s when Hoekstra was a feature and a music writer for the Chicago Sun-Times.
Sometimes I used to deliver that paper when I was a kid.
So you have that in common,
yes,
sort of, with the director
yeah.
here. All right. The Morels and the Skeletons played in Chicago from time to time, and he says that their musicianship was, and I quote, fierce and memorable. So he kind of fell in love with the music around here, right? Later he freelanced for the Journal of Country Music, and he started a two-part series about the Springfield music scene, okay? And the efforts just kept going over the years. They interviewed like 40 people for this documentary, many of whom you will recognize when you watch it, and you will recognize when you watch it, I guarantee you. And, you know, I think he did us a huge favor, because this is, it's like a time capsule, and it's a very well-written history of something that matters tremendously, not only here, but across the country.
Well, it's also, I'm not sure it's part of the documentary, but I know there's an explanation in there about the fact that it was more due to the infrastructure of anything that Springfield didn't become as big as Nashville is. So it's like they had it or got it in place much more rapidly. So now Nashville is, you know, music center of the world kind of thing.
Huge, right. But they do, you know, and as we talked about last week, they get into the Ozark Jubilee.
Right.
And they talk about how it was only one of 3 live music shows to go out across the country back in the day. And then they get into the birthplace of Route 66 and just the crossroads where we are, and this convergence of all of these artists that were here.
And some of the people who came through here, with the Jubilee being here, and the writers, and the technicians, you know, all of this is part of our scene in Springfield, and people often, they don't know, you know, how pivotal this was as far as music is concerned, especially country music. But you had so many different well, I mean, you had jazz, you had country, you had gospel. You know, all of these different things melding together, and it formed a kind of a unique sound in this area. So I would guess, you know, when you talk about the Skeletons, the Morels, things like that, it's like there's a Springfield sound that you would talk about there, much as they do, you know, this San Francisco
Oh, yeah.
sound or New Orleans sound.
Yeah.
There's probably a Springfield sound that, you know, can be pegged down here.
Oh, yeah, and they talk about the Daredevils, they talk about
Yep.
all these different bands, and then you see some local performers that haven't been around as long but still have
So where can you find this?
Oh, it's on YouTube. I forgot to tell you that. It's
That's
on
it.
YouTube. Go to YouTube and just search for it. The Center of Nowhere, you'll find it. It's about an hour and 35 minutes. Totally worth your time.
All
Put it
right.
on your playlist, your watch list.
Coming up, a musical performance from the talented Jacob Hughes.
Yep, you don't want to miss his cover of My Redeemer Lives. And Ozarks Live will be right back.